T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Power clear.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Bullpen. As always, I am James Roy and with me is Tom Chavarria. If you're on YouTube, sorry, I don't really know how to change the intro video, so you'll just get a preview of Tom and I just tinkering around for the whole duration of that. Shout out to Nomad Scott. He messaged me on Twitter after our show 2 weeks ago because we took a week off. I was at the rodeo last week. But we always do the tagline at the end of the show, #1 veteran-run Texans podcast in the stratosphere, universe, wherever it is. And Nomad Scott messaged me and requested on YouTube that we put it in the horizontal format so that he can do a bit more passive listening if he wants to, or I guess it was a rewind, because if you're live vertical, you can't go back to the beginning. So you have to catch it when it starts. And sometimes people are busy. Sometimes they can't catch it when it starts. So here we are. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. I know Houston sports fans aren't really good right now. They're like on pins and needles because, you know, the Cougs are our only hope. It's been a bad couple days. A bad probably week if you want to go that far back, you know, just in general. Today, opening day, you know, Stros, everybody's excited. Here we go. Everybody's healthy, and they didn't come out so hot. Day before, probably one of the worst collapses of a basketball team of any form, NBA or Euro basket or anything. Rockets lose a tough one, and they've lost a couple of tough ones. Dynamo took a tough L, you know, over the weekend. So it's been rough, but you know, there's always the next game. There's always the next day. The gentleman we're bringing on is going to bring us something else to watch. I've got work to do. There's a new sheriff in town. If you want to do that, let's talk UFL.
Let's talk UFL. So I'll give a little introduction. We're going to bring Abdul on. Abdul Memon is covering the UFL. And he has been brought on to talk to us about the Gamblers. For those who don't know, the Gamblers play football in Houston. They did last year. There's been a lot of shuffle around UFL, XFL, Roughnecks, Gamblers. We finally landed on the Gamblers, and Abdul is here to talk to us about it. So without further ado, not to bury the lead, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Abdul, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing great. Can't complain. Well, I guess we can't complain. There's a lot not going good with Houston sports, but we're hoping that you can tell us right now that the Gamblers are going to win the entire UFL championship.
I did my updated power rankings. I had them at the bottom at 8th, but it is a very there's a lot of parity in this league. So it can shuffle like throughout this whole like couple of weeks, honestly. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be really exciting.
Sweet. Well, I'll start with the questioning here, and this is something that I've thought about. So obviously, like I mentioned when introducing you, there's been a lot of parity in terms of which teams have been playing in Houston and how many leagues there have been outside of the NFL. So can you walk us through this current iteration of football that's not NFL football in Houston? What are we looking at? Because we've had Wade Phillips as a coach, Kevin Sumlin. What team are we looking at right now in the Gamblers?
Yep. So yeah, it's the Houston Gamblers. Yeah, like you mentioned, Kevin Sumlin was the head coach back in 2022. It was with the USFL. It was different from the XFL because the USFL played only in Birmingham for one season, and then they had 4 different markets they played in, and Houston was not one of them. For the first season, Sumlin went 3-7, but it was a really good stats. In the first half, he went 9-1. So he was really good in the first half, but he just didn't close games really well. So if he learned to close games, this team would have been a lot better. But he only coached for one season. Then 2023, it was CJ Johnson, and I believe they went 5-5 in that 2023 USFL season. And then after the USFL season and the XFL 2023 season, they merged. And then the 2023 Roughnecks, they did make the playoffs with Wade Phillips as the head coach, like you mentioned. But they moved Wade Phillips to San Antonio and the whole coaching staff and the roster, which was a very criticized move by like pretty much everyone in the league because he had local roots. His father was a coach of the Oilers. And the team was really good too, while the Gamblers were 5-5. And then 2024, it went really bad under CJ Johnson. They went 1-9, and then 2020 last season they went 5-5 5-5. But the attendance was really bad. It dropped significantly because of, I assume, was because of the coaching change. And then they moved stadiums around too because they go to Rice Stadium in 2024, and then back to TDECU last season because there's stadium renovations as well, so that played a factor in it too.
Okay, so we're getting currently the head coach is going to be Kevin Sumlin, right?
Yes, yep. So this season they so 2024, 2025 UFL season, they were under the Roughnecks branding. They brought in a new investor in Mike Rapoli. He had like fond memories of the USFL, and he wanted to invest in the USFL during like the 2022-2023 season before the merger. And the merger happened, then I think he withheld his investment. That's my guess. So yeah, he changed the whole branding to the Gamblers again, and brought in Kevin Sumlin because he has local ties. He coached at University of Houston, Texas A&M as well, and they are moving to another stadium, Shell Energy Stadium, where the Dynamo played, like you mentioned.
Oh, nice.
Yes, yeah. This was something that Rapoli really wanted to do, is play in smaller venues, like 10 to 25,000 seats, and just because a lot of the attendances aren't the greatest right now. So if it's like a 10,000 like attendance for a game, it doesn't look as bad as if you're in like a 50 to 60,000 seat arena. So he made the right decision. Everyone was really happy about that too.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, I'll turn it over to Tom. I know Tom's got a few questions. What have you got for Abdul here?
So I want to start off with this roster, right? I'm trying to dig into it, trying to understand who I should be looking at, who are names I need to learn, who are guys I need to know. I recently saw there's like a quarterback thing. Can you speak to that? They've got a couple different guys they're going to run out there. I know I saw something like that. Kind of break that down for me. Let me know who's the guy and what are they trying to do, things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. So for quarterbacks, so I had an article last week called Ask the Experts. So I asked about 5 other people who cover the league as well as myself. And for me, my most intrigued player was Hunter Deckers, which was the quarterback for the Houston Gamblers. Hunter was on the Saints practice squad for the entire 2025 season. Had no preseason stats, and his last attempted pass was in community college. So there's a lot of intrigue for me because I want to see what he does if he actually earned that practice squad spot. And ironically, in 2023, he was at Iowa State, and then he got in trouble for sports betting, and now he's on the Gamblers, which is chef's kiss. It's one of the funniest things. A lot of people in Iowa State were laughing at that, and including myself. But for Hunter, he's not going to be the starter. It's going to be Nolan Henderson. Nolan was with the Roughnecks for the last 2 seasons. He had a couple of starts, and his stats weren't the greatest, but his offensive coordinator for the Gamblers, Eric Price, was with the Roughnecks last year, so there's a lot of familiarity with the offense. So I think they want to give him one more shot, and then give Hunter a couple more weeks to just know the offense, get to know a little bit better, so that way he's more prepared and looks better on the field. And James Larson, who reports about the league really well, he said that Hunter will have a couple of series in the game, so it's not like he's going to be on the bench for the whole game. And then lastly, it was the last most recent signing. It was Taulia Tagovailoa, which is Tua's brother. There was a really odd addition for anyone who covers the leagues in the professional leagues outside of the NFL, because he did not have great stats in the CFL for only the one season in 2024, and it was limited stats as well. And then last year, he was in the European League of Football for Hamburg, and his first ever pass was a pick six. So, yeah, it was quite the thing to see, because there was a lot of intrigue, a lot of hype, because he was Tua's brother, and they thought he would ball out there. And he had good stats at Maryland too. So it didn't really pan out. He only lasted 2 starts, and then he was in the indoor football league, and he only had a couple he played a couple of games, and his stats were really not that great either. So it's more about the familiarity, because Kevin Sumlin was at Maryland for the two of the seasons that Taulia was there. So if he can build back his confidence and and all that stuff, then he could probably be a good player. I have my doubts. But he'll be the third string. I doubt he'll have some playing time, because unless there's catastrophic injuries to Deckers and Nolan. So I doubt I will see him on the field this season.
Okay, so looking just zooming out broad strokes, the USFL, it has a similar sort of issues to overcome as any other league that has tried to develop outside of the NFL, which is that when the NFL's not on, there's a lot of fans that just kind of tune out, don't really want to it to some extent takes a lot of focus to be a fan at a level, and it feels like a whole nother thing to be involved in a league like this. But my big question for you is, what are some of the differences between the USFL and NFL that would make it more interesting? The one thing that I recall off the top of my head is they go college rule on catches.
Yep.
So it'd be 1 foot required. But what are some of the big differences there?
Yeah, so for the UFL, there's a few different rules. The first one's they have a 60-yard field goal that's worth 4 points as opposed to the 3 points. And then, like you mentioned, the 1 foot inbounds catch. Last year it was 2 feet. Now it's 1 foot. And then there's no punting when you get to the opponents inside the 50-yard line. So if you're the opposing 49-yard line and it's 4th down, you gotta go for it. It doesn't matter. You can't punt it. You can't pin him down. So there will be a lot of intrigue, a lot more incentivizing of scoring, and there's more action as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. I know there are some coaches that had interviews with different shows. A lot of them were joking about if they're at the 40-yard line with 20 seconds left, they're gonna try to take a knee and have a 7-yard loss, so they can go for the 4-point game-winning field goal down 3. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this. There's gonna be a lot of different strategies in this league. Another rule is the point after touchdown. It used to be 1 point from the 2-yard line, 2 from the 5, then 3 from the 10. Now it's the regular 1 point from the 33-yard line, in the NFL, and then 2 points is ball on the 2-yard line, and then 3 points is ball on the 8-yard line. So if it's a 9-point game, it's still a 1-possession game, even if you're down 9-18. So it's a lot of fun. And then also one thing too is the onside kick rule. It's in the NFL, you see how it's the traditional, you kick it and then most likely the return team most likely gets it. In the UFL, it's 4th and 12 from the 33-yard line. So it's a lot more of an incentive to go for it and actually convert it. So it's a lot more drama, a lot more excitement, as opposed to seeing it a regular onside kick in the NFL where you'll 99.9% the other team gets it.
Yeah, and on top of that, from a broadcast perspective, is it still similar to I want to say it was the XFL, but where they have an in-depth look at what if a play is challenged, They'll give you that
Yes.
in-depth look of like what they're looking at and what they're looking for. Or
Yep, correct. Yeah, that's one thing too. Yeah, there's a super challenge, so you can challenge anything. So yeah, once it's challenged, they go through the whole process. You get to see it. It's a lot more. What's I forget the word, but you get to like see it. So it's not.
parody?
Let's say again.
Oh, I
Yeah.
said parody, but I misunderstood what you said.
I think clarity. I think it's more
Clarity.
clarity. So you can just
It
see
rhymed.
it.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, you can see it, and like you get to see the whole process. And the ACC in college football actually copied what the UFL did. So it's been a very positive experience as a whole for like watching on TV.
and for those that are watching on TV, are there any broadcasters that maybe we're familiar with that are going to be calling games?
Yeah, so Joel Klatt for Fox, he does all the big college football games. He does the UFL. He's been doing it the last couple of years. He does a great job. And then I think Jordan Rogers is doing it for ABC again. I know Joe Tessitore is calling the games for ESPN. He did that last year, and that was a huge like boost from like a fan perspective of watching the league because he brings a lot of energy to the games. So he's doing it again. So we're really happy about that.
Nice, sweet. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Let's talk about some other skill positions. Tell me
Yep.
about some of these wide receivers, maybe a tight end or a running back that that I need to know. Maybe an edge rusher. Like give me, and I know it's not fair, but give me what you would say would be the equivalent to some of our favorite Texan players. Who's their Derek Stingley? Who's their Will Anderson? Who's their Nico Collins? That sort of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the receiver group's really good. They have John Trey Kirkland. He was with San Antonio last year, and he played really. He didn't have a great season last year, but the year prior he was really good. And they have another receiver called named Jalen Moreno Cropper. He was with the Cowboys for the last couple of seasons, and now he's with the Gamblers. So he's a very intriguing player to watch for the Gamblers this season. And then Justin Hall, he was with Houston last year. He had a really good PFF grade, and he was one of the top graded wide receivers from last year. So there's a lot of really good receivers. There's two that I'm looking at specifically. It's Luan Winningham and Kai Loxley. They're more the big body receivers, so you can take the top off the field and be more that vertical threat. So I'm looking forward to seeing those two because Kirkland and Cropper and Hall, they're not like the biggest receivers at all. So if one of those two can be that big body receiver, then this offense can look a lot more more efficient and loaded, in my opinion. And then you mentioned the defensive line group. I really like the interior defensive line. Kyron Bars, Israel Antwine, and then Rashard Lawrence. Those three are really, really good. They played really well last season in the UFL. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those three. Their defensive edge group, one name to look at is Malik Fisher. He played for the DC Defenders last season. He had a really good year last year for them. The opposite side, it's kind of a question mark. I have three players. It looks like Christopher Allen's going to be named starter. The depth chart just got released this afternoon. So he's going to be the starter. Kenny Dyson's another person that I'm looking at because he was with the Panthers in 2024 on their practice squad and their active roster, but he got cut in minicamp after the rookie minicamp. So he's trying to get back on the field, trying to make a name for himself. So those two guys I'm looking at specifically to be that Robin to the Malik Fisher Batman, in my opinion. And then for cornerback, Damon Arnett, he was with Houston last season in the UFL, but also he was with the Houston Texans practice squad. And he had he played a couple games where he was on the active roster for the Texans last season. And he's back with the Gamblers, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him play because he was like a former first-round pick for the Raiders. So he has a lot of talent, and it shows because he was on an NFL roster last season.
Nice. That's a name I recognize, Damon Arnett. Nice. One last thing. I want you to give your pitch. Okay. So like a lot of times, like I would equate it to like soccer fans in the United States where it's like, you should watch the Dynamo because the MLS is like actually really worthwhile. And like, I know that you think soccer's weird, but like, it's not. It's really fun to watch, and here's why. So like, what's your pitch to those fans that are like, I don't need another team to watch. Like, I'm just kind of over it. I'm not going to be tuning in. Like, what would be your sales pitch to get them to tune in?
Yeah, so for me, it's an overall net positive for the football ecosystem. Like we mentioned with the new rules, like the NFL took the UFL's kickoff. So it's a really good thing to see like new rules being played out in another league as opposed to just putting it in the NFL and everyone just getting mad. So it's good to see like another like kind of like a minor league, but also like there are players that need development and need reps. And a couple examples are Dondrea Tillman. He was with the Birmingham Stallions between the 2022 and 2024 season, so 3 seasons of spring football. And now he gets his opportunity with the Broncos, and he's been playing really well. He's been the backup for Nick Benito, which is awesome to see. And he's made plays too, so it's been awesome to see like him performing at a high level when he was in like spring football for 3 seasons. So that's one person. Another person was Jalen Redmond. He was on the Panthers training camp in 2023, and he was an early cut too. He didn't make it through the whole training camp. He plays in the UFL for the Renegades, and then he had a really great season. Then he got signed with the Vikings. 2024, he played I think all the games, and then this most recent season, he was a starter and earned a $1.1 million bonus for his performance. Because he was overperforming his player contract, so because he didn't get like a great contract, because the UFL guys don't really get great contracts. They're just player minimum, so he played like a lot better than what he was getting paid. So it was really awesome to see. And then lastly, I'm a Detroit Lions fan, so I saw this past offseason during like training camp, they signed 8 guys from the UFL that played that most recent season. 2 of those guys, Jacob Sailors, he was the starting returner, and he made the team. So it was awesome to see. And then Nick Whiteside, he was on the practice squad, but he did make plays in one game against the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. It was really cool to see, and it's really vital because Dan Campbell it says he wants those guys playing in that league because it gives them tape. It makes their bodies fresh because they're not just training all day. You're actually getting hits, you're actually getting calluses or bruises basically. So you're kind of it's a really good thing to see these coaches and GMs embrace this league from a player development perspective. And it's cool to see some games where oh, that guy can play in the NFL, like Sailors. I saw him for the past 2 seasons with St. Louis. I'm oh, he can play. He's got speed. I can see it. And he got his opportunity in the NFL. Now it's really cool to see. And one more reason too is the cost for NFL games are really expensive. For me, like a Lions game, if you want a seat in the nosebleeds, it's at least $200. I don't know how much it is for Houston Texans games. I would assume it's probably $150 or maybe even lower. But yeah, it's really expensive to go to these games and parking and all that stuff. For UFL tickets, most of them are between $20 to $50 a game. So it's really nice to see a very affordable option, in my opinion. And right now, the sale ends in an hour and a half. It's a 33% off sale. So for the home openers right now. So it was nice to see another discount on top of the good deal that you get for tickets. And also, if you want to go to the Houston Gamblers game, it's April 5th, Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time, and Ludacris is performing at halftime. That's another thing they did. It was for all 8 teams for their home openers. They got a halftime performance show.
Nice. A lot of good reasons. I especially like the development piece. I think that in the USF the USL obviously wants to develop its own presence and probably doesn't want to tie itself to the NFL. But I think that marketing itself as a developmental league would be really good for its longevity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then to speak to your point about ticket prices, there's nothing better in my opinion than going to a minor league baseball game. Out here, you could pay $10 for right behind home plate. You don't really care what happens in the game. You're just there for the atmosphere. And
right.
That live sports cheap is always better. I think
For sure.
so. Even
And
if
you're also in the soccer stadium, so you're not like when you're like in like the nosebleeds, it's not really you're not that far from the field. So
Tom would know.
yeah.
He spends every weekend and every Wednesday that he can at Shell Energy Stadium.
Oh, nice.
I'll be there next Saturday. Next Saturday,
Hey.
I believe it's Portland. Maybe it's Seattle. No, it's Seattle. Maybe it's Seattle they're playing.
Hmm.
I'd have to go and look. But the Dynamo got a game next Saturday. You're 100% right. There isn't a bad seat in the stadium. I sit somewhere in the middle, and you feel like you're right on top of it. I mean, it's really, like you spoke to, something that's a little bit more closer to the action. It's 100% that. I think it's going to be cool. I know that's not the first time that they've done football in that stadium. Sam Houston State played some games there last season, and they had pretty good turnouts. And Huntsville, for someone that makes that drive, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Houston. So to get guys to come down and be able to go pack that stadium is pretty cool. So I think definitely you got to get out and see the Gamblers.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they're having giveaways too. So like first 5,000 fans, you get like shirts and stuff. I know the last game is a Jim Kelly bobblehead because he played in the like original USFL in the 1980s. So having like an NFL legend bobblehead from a league that's like 40 years old, it's kind of pretty cool to me. It's kind of a cool collectible. So
yeah, sounds really cool. Well, Abdul, thanks for joining us today to talk about the USL,
UFL.
UFL.
Yeah.
I lost the letter there for a second.
No, you're good. You're good.
Thanks for joining us to talk about the UFL. We appreciate your time. Can you let the good folks at home know where they can find you so they can follow along throughout this coming season?
Yep. So Twitter, Abdul Memon Foot, and then the Abdul Memon Football is the Substack. Game previews. I did one for this Tuesday. They usually come out on Fridays, but I want to get ahead of it early. And then game recaps will be on Tuesday. So previews Friday. Except for 1 week because there's a Thursday night game. But and then Tuesdays are going to be the game recaps.
Sweet. Well, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate your time. And yeah, all right.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, sir.
Right,
Thank
later.
you.
All right. Thank you, Abdul, for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Now, let's talk Texans. Let's do it. A little bit along. I don't know what we call our bit at the beginning of the show where we talk about teams that are in Houston that aren't the Texans, but we ran a little long today on it because we had a special guest. So fun, always fun to do it. And I love talking about just about any Houston sports team. So we'll have one more here in the near future with the Connecticut Sun are getting moved to Houston. That's at least in the works. That was
Really?
a rumor.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they're gonna I believe they're moving them down there to like revive the Comets. So
Yes.
that'll be
The other thing
fun.
we definitely got to talk about, which obviously not today because we've got all this other. The Houston's getting hockey. We're getting a hockey team. So the Houston Bulls are going to be a thing.
When did that happen? What league is that? AHL?
It's I think so. It's minor league, but I can't remember where they're getting moved down from. They're going to be in the Richmond Rosenberg area, which it's a little south of Houston. But I mean, it's hockey. I think it's a Bull. Sign me up. I need a sweater yesterday.
Dude, hockey at any level is fun, especially live. Like people always make that joke. I went to go see a fight and ended up watching a hockey game, but like, there doesn't even need to be a fight. Like a minor league team, a professional team doesn't matter. Like hockey is always fun live. Granted, a lot of the minor league teams will charge the same price for the merch as the NHL teams, but that's neither here nor there. The Houston Bulls, that sounds like a pretty solid name. I don't hate it. It would be one of the few teams in Houston that's not themed after space, so be interesting to see. But let's talk Texans. So last we left you was 2 weeks ago. The Texans, there were still a lot of questions around what the Texans were going to do to address the offensive line, what we should expect. I was literally at the rodeo when the news broke that Wyatt Teller signed with the Texans. So it was a good night. That was the same night. And also ran into Jalen Petrie that night at the rodeo. And by ran into Jalen Petrie, I mean, I was standing there waiting for my wife to finish. She was changing our kid in the restroom. I was standing there with my parents and I looked in the concourse and I just saw Jalen Petrie and I was like, oh, look, that's Jalen Petrie. And I went over, I tried to be respectful. I looked like he was on a date or something. I didn't want to like ruin his night or like draw too much attention to it. And I even waited till the next day to post about it. I like literally, I was like so conscious about like trying to be discreet and everything, but it was fun. Getting to see him, he's a chill guy. He took it all in stride. He didn't seem very mad about it, which is more than I can say for some, ultra famous people. There are plenty of people that are the best at their position in the NFL that probably would have told me to go somewhere. So I can't think of any of them being on the Texans, but anyways. So it's been a fun time, and there was a lot that happened in this 1 week that we took off. I literally was like at the rodeo, like, oh, perfect. Wyatt Teller signs with the Texans the 1 week we're not having a show. That's great. But it's happened. So let's talk about that first. How do you feel about the Wyatt Teller move?
Before we get to that, I need to go back to the Jalen Petrie thing, because
I knew you were going to do that.
James texts me and goes, "Look at this." And it's him, and it's in a picture with Jalen Petrie. The first thing out of my mind was, well, did you apologize to him? Because you are the ultimate Jalen Petrie apologist. And
He's
he goes,
the top of the list of people I owe an apology to, and I had the opportunity in person to do it, and I didn't do it. I was trying. If that conversation would have drawn too much attention to the interaction,
probably.
But Jalen, if you see this, I'm very sorry for the way I talked to you after your sophomore season.
And for somebody who's been a ride or die Jalen Petrie guy, I feel like it's my job to make sure to remind him there was a moment in time when you were not a fan, but we're here now, and I love it.
To be fair, I wanted him to be good. I just felt like what happened between his second season and third season was D'Amico Ryan. So, I mean,
fair.
But I mean, it doesn't matter how it happened. There is that apology owed. And up next, I'm going to run into Dalton Schultz, and I'll need to apologize to him for the way I talked to him after his second season. I should just start a rule now where when a player has a poor second season in Houston, I just don't talk about it.
Let it go.
No, let it go.
So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I too must apologize, because as soon as I saw the signing, and I can't remember, I think it's Moore is his last name, the guy from Arizona, the other Brown.
Evan Brown.
As soon as Evan Brown was signed, I tweeted out, and that is the end of the Wyatt Teller to Houston saga. And lo and behold, I was absolutely wrong. I thought for sure there's no way the Texans would spend more money on the line when they had all these draft picks and they had addressed all these other positions, done such a great job in the offseason. And all they did was say, Tom, you must shut up because we're not done here. And they go out and they get a great piece who's already, said they're going to move him from his natural position back to a position that, he knows he can play, which I think is great. The fact that the line is starting to come together where you're going to have pieces everywhere. It's just a huge move. You're seeing a lot of people start to see, hey, the Texans did a really good job upgrading this offensive line. And that was like the biggest glaring weakness. So it's going to be really tough. There's so many podcasts out there that have talked to it where they're like, look, if this defense stays healthy, the offense just doesn't have to screw it up. So, and now I think they're in a really good position with the moves that they've made this offseason to be really good on offense, and at a minimum, be good enough on offense to be able to do what we hope they do next season.
Exactly. I think you captured a lot of it. To me, the talking point around Wyatt Teller has been, would be nice, not necessarily the most, like 100%. If this doesn't happen, I'm out on the Texans this year, but I like the move. It certainly affects the way you view the draft. And in that way, I think you're left in a position where you expect Teller to be the starter and you expect Ingram to be the starter. So now I wouldn't say that guard is not a need for the Texans, but I would say that they can play it differently because they have their expected starters on the roster right now. So it's, to me, the philosophy remains the same. You want a high potential guard. I'm looking at my favorite pick right now for the Texans is at 69 to take Keelan Rutledge around that range or trade back. I think he's projecting around 80, but this is a guy who played at Georgia Tech, fits the gap scheme, is viewed very heavily around most circles as a starter at the next level, but is not projecting with a very high draft pick. I think it's easier to justify the value. Like if we look at who Nick Caserio is, the value in this draft is at defensive positions early and offense later, with the exception of tackle. I think, and Caden Proctor's been heavily connected to the Texans at the 28 pick. There is some decent offensive linemen, but I think you set yourself up in a position where Caserio can do what he does and go, who is bringing me the most value at wherever I'm picking. And obviously sometimes he goes with his guy. We've had that discussion before, but he's in a position where it gives a lot more flexibility. I think my last 2 or 3 mock drafts, I haven't taken an offensive player before pick 59, like gone double defense early, because I think that this move sets that up. Now, to speak to Wyatt Teller, moving to left guard is a little bit concerning, because that was the last time he was bad at guard early in his career, was when he played left guard. The move to right guard was something that really helped him become the Wyatt Teller that we know today. He seems confident that he can make the switch. I think maybe it's a coaching thing. Maybe there's a lot of factors that go into that. If we look at his general grading, up until 2023, he was grading out as like top 5 guard on PFF and was looking really good. Even over the past 2 seasons, he's graded out middle ground 32. There's 64 starting guards in the NFL. If we're looking at just like at the start of the season, 64 guys take the field as the starter. And so if you're ranking out as 32, you're basically the best. You're the best of the starters, of the guys, like, but you're still maybe a little lower than you should be. So Wyatt Teller's lower level of play in 2024 and 2025 could be attributed to being on the Cleveland Browns when they went from 2023 being a playoff team that looked really good to getting mollywopped by the Texans and then sent into absolute obscurity for 2 seasons where just nothing seemed to go right for the Browns. And I could imagine that in such a mental game that it would be very troublesome to try and motivate yourself to go out there and give it all when all you're doing is risking being injured on a team that has no shot at the playoffs and no hope of being anything more than a team that has to play games so that other teams can decide where they land in the playoffs. So I think that from that perspective, it's easy to be excited about this signing because the coaching on the Texans has improved over the past 2 seasons. We've seen improvements along the offensive line. So there's reason to believe, and Wyatt Teller specifically called out that he's excited to work with Cole Popovich. So how's that for the reputation we've talked about Cole Popovich having? There's guys coming in that specifically are calling him out. There was the story about how CJ specifically called up Wyatt Teller and did a little recruiting work. How much sway do you think that had in this move for the Texans?
I don't think it was a call. The way I read it, they were at like a Christian conference or something like that. And they face to face. And he was like, basically, I would love for you to block for me. So when you have that interaction where it's, it's man to man, it's not a text, it's not a social media thing. I think that's awesome. I love, if you saw when he got signed, you saw the social media thing, he immediately went and embraced the whole Texan culture, boots on, George Strait in the background, a whiskey in hand. I was like, that's Texan all stinking day. So for me, I love it. You spoke to the draft. You spoke to, them not necessarily being out on guard. I think you're 100% right. But what the phrase that pays and the best teams, PBA, best player available, or BPA. I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Best player available. Best player available. They're going to be able to do that. You named Keelan Rutledge. I want Jennings Dunker. I want him for the moxie. I want him for the aura, as the kids say. Like, I believe that dude will be able to slowly develop into whatever you want him to be, and he'll be great. And for me, they can move back and get him. They can move around. Caserio's going to move around anyway. Any draft pick, any mock that you do with the draft picks now, it's very unlikely that those are going to be his picks. Maybe one of them will, but one of them won't. Brandon said the mullet. Yes, that is a very majestic piece of lettuce that he's rocking right there with the stash. I mean, I don't know if y'all saw the thing, the Pat McAfee show where they're like, look at this guy. and there's like this meme or whatever where it's got like an eagle in the background, free birds playing, and it's just like, he's that guy. So for me, they said if you were going to build an offensive lineman in a lab, that's how you would build him. So I hope the Texans go get him. And if he's a swing tackle, cool. If he's a swing guard, cool. Swiss Army knife, I'm cool with that too. This offensive line, I think, for the first time in a long time, I know James has said famously that Nick Caserio may not be the guy to build the offensive line for the Texans. I think he did a pretty damn good job.
I think he did. I mean, add that to the list of people I owe an apology to. We're building it. We're working on that. But I agree. Jennings Dunker is great, and I think the Texans have shown that that's like prototypically the kind of offensive lineman they like. They literally picked up Braden Smith, who played guard in college, kind of did the opposite of what people usually do and went from guard to tackle. So he has that flexibility both ways. Jennings would be a great pickup. The one thing that has come up about Iowa offensive linemen since the draft process started, like I do think that that offensive line being picked as the best offensive line in college is a huge thing. They all are skilled. The problem, I think, becomes that their scheme fit relative to what the Texans do, which is something that can usually be overcome. Some guys are just destined to be only good for blocking like in a zone scheme, whereas some are only good in gap. But there is that possibility that they like Jennings Dunker as that guy. But a lot of the guys they've been tied to are better in the gap scheme. And that's why like a Keelan Rutledge or other guys that I've kind of aligned with to try and pick for the Texans grade out better as gap blockers. But I like Jennings Dunker's general personality and like the way he carries himself. I think that's like someone you could be like, well, he grades out a little low at gap blocking. It's like, okay, but he grades out really high at like swarm. So like, what more do you need from the guy?
He's Kamari Lassiter on the line. Everybody dogged him because he couldn't run his 40. His 40 was slow. And they said, nope, just give me a dog. Just give me a dude that just wants it more than the next guy. Jennings Dunker looks like that. I think a line with Braden Smith, Jennings Dunker, and Wyatt Teller at some point in time would just be a nasty front. They're not trying to give you an inch.
Now, we've talked about the draft in general and I've kind of alluded to it, or at least directly talked about it. But how do you think the signing of Wyatt Teller and what the Texans have done with offensive line affects the way they go about it? You talk about best player available, but like, how do you feel? Because I know a lot of people will be frustrated by it if it happens, but like if the Texans didn't move from 28 and 38 and the picks were like, insert defensive tackle here, we can talk about Brandon brought up Caleb Banks and his foot injury, which has clouded the judgment on that. I've done a lot of research into defensive tackles, and I've kind of landed on Christian Miller due to his mix of age, power, where he fits for this Texans team. But if they went like interior defensive lineman and linebacker in some mix, whether it's Anthony Hill, Jacob Rodriguez, some mixture of linebacker and defensive tackle, how would you feel about that, knowing that even with what they've done along the offensive line, you could still count most of that as a need?
To me, I feel like they've done so much in free agency that there's really not one draft pick that they could make that I would go, oh no, we don't need that. Oh no, you can't pick that guy. Like there's just really not a whole lot of holes that I feel like they haven't answered. Like that I feel like a draft pick has to go that way. Yeah, you could say they need, a developmental guy for the line. You could say they need a developmental guy for the defensive line. But if that's not there and you're looking at this team as a win now team, you start to go, okay, edge, I could use another edge rusher, a young guy to spell, D Hunter or I need another linebacker, somebody that plays coverage better or something, somebody that if Jalen Petrie went down, I'd be able to slot him in that star nickel role. Like, we don't look at those as needs, but if they went out and got them in at 28 or 38, or if they went up to go get somebody, I mean, I don't know that I would be upset. I think there's always going to be people you're not going to please. But for me, there's just not a whole lot of things where I'm going, if the Texans don't get this in the draft, it's going to be a problem come week 1. I'll pose the question to you. Is there a position that you feel like if they don't address it in the draft, it's going to be a problem week 1 based on what they have right now?
I mean, the only ones that I can think of are all defensive is the thing. And here's the thought process. Some of these might be surprising. Most of them probably won't. But linebacker, right now you've got Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o. That is a position where in the past we've been concerned with depth. But this is a Texans team that has pretty consistently only trotted out 2 linebackers for most snaps. So you really only need 2 quality guys. So this is one where I would expect a higher pick. I would expect them to go for a guy that they think can take that snap share. That or they have a lot of confidence in Henry To'oTo'o. Defensive tackle and edge are the other 2. And the reason for that is we don't have Derek Barnett under contract. He took up 350 snaps last season. As much as people talk about how great Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are, they play relative to the rest of the league, they play a relatively low snap share because there's that depth there where the Texans can give them that rest so that they're at the best that they can be when they're on the field. And so I think that a name that's come up is, I believe it's Zion Young. I could be wrong on the last name or the first name, but he's a Missouri defensive end. I could be wrong on a lot of things. But he's a Missouri defensive end who slots in really well if he falls like in the second round. I think there's a lot of reason to believe the Texans could go edge early. And there will be some people that are mad about it because they're like, we don't need a starting edge. And it's like, no, you don't understand. It's just like the interior defensive line, literally such a rotational position that even like the interior defensive line as it stands brings back a lot of the guys from last year, but you still want that young guy who can rotate in, take a significant amount. Like people are like, well, we've got Tommy Togiai and Sheldon Rankins. It's like, yeah, cool. But like, you know how much help Christian Miller would be? The teams eat when they, fill out not only the starters along their interior offensive and defensive line, but the depth, especially on the defensive side, the depth piece. So I think that the signing of Wyatt Teller makes it to where it would be significantly less, really not frustrating at all if the Texans decided to go guard later. I think it gives you the opportunity to go with a guy that you can develop. And I think it sets you up to do what Nick Caserio, I think each offseason has done it this way, where he set himself up to be able to make those kind of moves in his mind, where he's like, I will get the best player available and I won't think about need because I used free agency to set that up. But like, this is the first time in the past, last 2 off seasons, I don't think he really did an excellent job of doing that. He just kind of did it and went for it. Whereas this offseason, it feels like Nick Caserio has truly done everything he can in free agency to set himself up to literally not have to care about need with his premium picks, which is a beautiful thing. That's how Super Bowl winning teams function. That's how consistent elite teams function, is at best player available. But they don't just function at best player available because that's how they function. They do it because they've set up their roster to where they can go best player available, and it's not to the detriment of another position that needs it. So this is the first offseason I feel like where Nick Caserio has 100% done that. So and maybe that was what was missing and why I felt bad about his offensive line addressing, is that he's going for best player available every time, but he hadn't set himself up to do that. So, Jordan, man, if we could get, that's why I love Christian Miller or just a Georgia interior defensive lineman. That's just the formula for success as we've seen in the past. But yeah, I feel really good about it. With that, there has been a lot that's gone down, but that's really the most notable conversation topic that we have. And we'll have all off season to talk. We didn't pull out any mock drafts today. We had our special guest, Abdul, talk about the UFL, but next week we'll be back into our normal schedule. But Tom, do you have any final thoughts before we kind of bring this thing to a close?
Just really appreciate Abdul for coming on. I thought that was really dope. Love talking, UFL, really going to love talking, all the different sports, a little bit, so it's not all Texan all the time. Doesn't mean I'm not here for all the Texan talk. It's just, it's nice to be able to have those other sports, to kind of bounce around a little bit. Cause I feel like a lot of fans watch a little bit of everything. I don't think I'm the only guy that's just on everything Houston sports. But but I'm really excited for the season. It's going to be a lot of, all right, when's training camp? All right, when's preseason? I need the regular season tomorrow. Like we're in this I don't want to say golden age because I that's an Astro thing, but we're in this nice sweet spot with the Texans where I think for the next 4 or 5 years, you really are going to have a window where they're going to be very good every year, and they're going to be have a seat at the table. Like, all right, the Texans are a team that if things go their way, they can be at the AFC Championship team. They're going to be a team. They're going to be on the short list of odds for a Super Bowl, because of the roster, the work that Nick Casero's done, and just I really feel like the culture that D'Amico's created is getting some of these guys to okay. I'm Ed Ingram. We didn't talk about him, but I think he turned down money to stay here, and he spoke to it where it was basically like, I could have went somewhere else, and that might not have been a good environment. It might not have worked out for me to get the best out of my game, and that's not something that we're used to seeing from a Houston Texan football team, where guys are like trying to get there, or guys are willing to take less to stay. So for me, that's just really exciting as a fan, because you feel like they're going to figure it out. If they're missing something, Casero will go get it. If there's a maturity thing, they'll squash it. Like where you look at some of the other teams in Houston and you question age and you question maturity and you question, whether they can get stuff done. I really feel like there's not a whole lot of questions anymore, other than for them to put it on the field. People are going to question CJ Stroud. You hear everyone talking about, don't worry about CJ Stroud. Now they went out and got some protection for him. I'm just ready to get it going.
Couldn't agree more. With my final thoughts, I'd like to shout out Brandon Halam for being so active in the chat. This week I was able to figure out how to get the chat on the screen, so I wasn't putting them up, but we were definitely reading all of your comments, and we appreciate you for that. As always, thank you for watching the Bullpen. I have been James Roy, and you can find me at James Roy NFL wherever you get your social media. Tom is TC Tom1 on Instagram and Third Coast Tom on Twitter. And we are the Bullpen, the #1 veteran-run Texans podcast in the entire universe. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. And this audio will be available the following day, as is usually the case. So if you are tuning in on video and you missed most of it, you can always listen tomorrow if you would like, or you can watch it on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.